shout out to our show sponsor, Arango Insurance Services. Arango Insurance Services is a full service insurance agency. We do home, auto, commercial, and any specialty. We specialize in the automotive space. So if you are a restoration shop, an OEM shop, a componentry manufacturer, we're able to insure you. It's a great time right now to have your policy reviewed, see if we can save you money, make sure you are properly insured, and at least evaluate your policy. See if you're in the right spot. So give us a shout out at Arango Insurance Services. You can reach us at our website, www.arangoins.com, or give us a call at 949-887-1274. Enjoy the podcast. We'll talk to you later. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ed's Auto Garage. Thank you all for tuning in on today's episode. Before we get started, kind of wanted to give everybody a little bit of information about a couple of organizations that are near and dear to my heart. One of them is going to be the Piston Foundation. And what they do is they do funding for skilled trade education for students, technicians that want to pursue a career in the collector car industry. So they kind of raise money to help train and give folks the education to be able to go out and get jobs in a field that, face it, some of these, mechanics of some of these older cars and what have you are kind of going away. So we got to keep that heritage of the new or the older cars kind of going. And this is an avenue to do it. So if you'd like, check out pistonfoundation.org, and you can learn a little bit more if you want to donate and help that organization. Our guest today is Matt Stone. But before we bring on Matt Stone, one of the reasons why we have Matt on today is that he's very involved with the Boys Republic in Chino Hills, and also the Friends of Steve McQueen car and motorcycle show that goes on in June. So that's another organization here. I'll let you see a little bit of this. I think maybe you can see that semi there. Yeah. So basically it is on June the 5th is a Sunday, and that's the day of the actual show. And it is basically all things Steve McQueen, and it's done at the Boys Republic, where Matt and I will talk about here in a couple of minutes about how Steve was involved with the organization and how he kind of gave back to it after he became famous. So yeah, check out Steve McQueen carshow.com for more information. And like I mentioned, our guest today is Matt Stone, and Matt is a freelance journalist, author, broadcaster. He's a former editor for Motor Trend Classic magazine, and he's involved in a lot of other things, and he's written a number of books on his own, and he's a true car guy. So welcome, Matt. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hopping on here with us.
You bet, Ed, and car fool is probably a better description.
So, hey, Matt, so give us a little, I always like starting off so that people can kind of get an understanding. Again, it's like we're sitting here in the garage, just us talking. Give us a little background on how you came involved so much into the car world. Is it a career path you've had all your life, or did that just kind of come up later?
It kind of came up a little bit later, but the beginnings of it were pretty organic. My dad was a car guy, had cars, loved cars, great cars, hot rods, some customs, and some nicer cars later in his life, and sports cars. And I just kind of, got the mojo from my dad. That's where it started. And I imagine does for a lot of us. And wow, from there, my other big hobby was photography. Of course, what did I learn how to take pictures of cars? Racing. Did a lot of motorsport photography in my earlier days for car clubs and at Riverside Raceway and all kinds of places, the drags and whatever. And and also through school, kind of just developed a bit of a knack for writing. I did the creative writing contest and all that kind of thing. And one day, when I was in my late 20s, it all kind of crashed in the middle.
Hmm.
And I just thought, what started it is I was reading a car magazine, to be nameless because it doesn't matter, and I probably don't remember. But it was awful. I mean, the writing was terrible, and the storytelling was terrible, and the pictures were average, and this and that. And I remember just pitching it across the room. And my rather wonderful and supportive wife said, "What's the matter?" I said, "This is junk. This is just crap." And I probably had some other words for it too. She said, "Well, stop bitching about it and just do it." Well, there's a thought. And so I knew a couple of guys that were professional writers that I'd met around car things and events and whatever. And I called a couple and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about jumping into this pool. And can I buy you lunch and pick your brain a little bit?" And that was 30 some odd years ago. And here we are.
It's kind of funny. It's funny that it seems to be that a lot of the car enthusiasts, guys that are in the car industry, kind of come from a writing background. I guess it's the way to get the story out, but the guys that are the guys that really kind of have the cool jobs are the guys who are the writers.
Yeah, there's a lot of us that take different paths into it and out of it. I mean, once somebody's worked on a magazine or been a freelance writer, a lot of them go into PR, into public relations. Some of them into marketing. They'll go to work for a marketing company that does marketing for this aftermarket company or that one, or a lot of them go to work for a car maker, doing press releases and events and auto show stuff. So we all take a little different path in, and some of us take a little different path beyond. But it's been Betty good to me. I was a staffer for a long time at what was then Peterson Publishing, and then became a lot of other things. On staff at Motor Trend as a feature writer and staff editor for a long time, and then went back on my own. I will tell you this: when I jumped into freelancing, I got a tip of the hat to my wife, Linda, which not everybody will care, but I remember I was at that time in my late 20s, a vice president at a mortgage company.
Yep. Okay.
Doing pretty well, making good money, had a company car, had a title, blah, and blah, and blah, and blah. And I decided, I would I wasn't passionate about that. It was a good living, but, we had two little babies, and one night on a Thursday night, about 2:30 in the morning, I nudge her and wake her up and say, "Hey, I'm going to quit tomorrow." Not knowing what that response would be, she said, "Okay, do that." And I did, and have never looked back. And
wow.
it's just been the greatest ride. Yeah, she's been terribly supportive, but it's the greatest thing. The saying, if you do what you love and it's never work.
Right.
And I mean, of course, yeah, sometimes it's work, but it never really sucks. And,
no, I can imagine. Yeah. And very important to have a support, someone like your spouse, someone that supports what you want to do. So that's, plus you had small kids. Yeah.
Thank goodness she had a good job with all the benefits.
Yeah.
But it enabled me to go hang out of helicopters and take pictures of cars or do whatever. But honestly, not to over-answer the career path question, but this has been the catalyst or the conduit to more great things than I can tell you. Travel, meeting so many of my heroes, driving some fabulous cars, judging at concourse, working at shows. I mean, travel all over the world. I mean, this deal has opened up more doors for me than I can tell you. And that's where the part is, do what you love and it's never work.
Yeah.
And it's been the conduit and the catalyst for more great stuff in my life. So I would recommend it to anybody. If you've got the chops, got the guts and the passion and the capability, try to do what you love. It's great.
Yeah, no, I know. And it's kind of funny because, you know, I've kind of gone down that same path as well, where you just kind of like throw, I don't want to say throw in the towel, but you just kind of go, okay, I'm done with what I was doing. I want to do something that I'm passionate about and something that I enjoy. And anything that I try to do now in a career sense has always kind of been basically revolving around the automobile or around cars and bikes and scooters and things like that. So I know I totally hear you. Matt, are you a Southern California guy? Are you a
Yes.
California guy?
Yes. Born in Santa Monica and raised in LA, and then mostly around the Inland Empire, which used to be, was Cucamonga, Alta Loma, and Rancho Cucamonga and Upland. We lived in Upland, that's kind of where I grew up. And but yeah, I'm a SoCal guy from day one, and I'm staying.
Wow,
and it's the best car culture in the world.
You grew up in Upland. You grew up in Upland. I grew up in Claremont.
Yep. Hey, neighbor.
I know. Isn't that funny? So I was just there to clean up wind damage from this weekend or last week.
I know that. I saw that on the news, and man, those monster trees splitting people's houses in half. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of got a little crazy. Hey, so I mean, you've worked, you've done freelance work for tons of organizations and groups and stuff like that. And your time at Motor Trend, what was that you were doing, at Motor Trend mostly?
At the beginning, I was just one of the feature editor guys. We did road tests and all the Car of the Year programs and features. I kind of got to be the cultural imperative guy. If there was something to do about history, car history, motorsports history, design, technology, any of that of sort of a cultural or historical nature, I tended to do those features. Plus, a lot of road tests and a lot of comparisons and new vehicle launches. I was the staff editor and did all the things that all the other staff editors did.
So does writing about cars and your experience and your reviews and things like that, I mean, I'm assuming that just kind of flows out naturally from you. And I mean, just from pen to paper, I guess.
Yeah, it pretty much does for me, although I will say there was a lot to learn along the highway. I had a lot of great colleagues, teammates on the staff there at Peterson that I learned from, that I watched and listened to, and one or two editors that were also terrific mentors. And you kind of develop your voice and your style, and that has to work within the framework of the title you're working for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, generally from synapses to keyboard is a fairly direct route for me, although I learned every day. Yeah. Every time you drive a different car or write a different story or experience a different event or meet somebody, that's all training. Without being directly training, it's learning. And yeah, after a while, it came pretty naturally to me, and still does. And I'm going to stick with it until nobody returns my call or answers my emails anymore.
Well, I know you have an array of books, and we talked a moment before we went on recording, about your extensive books that you've written. And I kind of see a little bit of a pattern here where we've got a number of the books. You've got James Gardner, you've got obviously Steve McQueen, you've got Paul Newman. Are we going to expect a Patrick Dempsey book coming out sometime? I mean, following that actor driver, thought process, I guess.
That is a group of guys that I really was entranced with. I mean, those are the coolest, studliest, bitchinest guys that look great up on that movie screen, and boy, could they drive. And did they have cars? And in some cases, could they race? So, will there be more of them? Quite possibly. Patrick Dempsey would be a great one. And I have pounded mercilessly on Jay Leno to do his career book when he's ready. And he says he's just not ready yet. So I would hope that if there's two more I could do, honestly, yeah, probably PD and Jay Leno. The other hero upon hero of mine is Mario Andretti, and I've gotten to know him very well over the years. I count him as my friend. And the problem is he's already done 2 or 3 or 4 books with other guys. And he's also currently working on his own memoir. So I don't think there's a spot for me to do a book with Mario, but I'd love to. But Patrick Dempsey and Jay Leno, yeah, either of those guys calls, I'm there. I would love to do Patrick Dempsey's career book as car guy, as Hollywood car guy.
Sure.
I think he has his absolutely legitimate chops as any of the other guys. You know, he's raced all over the world, podium finisher at Le Mans. He's owned his own race team. He really, really worked hard as a driver and now a racing team owner. And he has great cars. And he's a great study. He knows his stuff. He's not a dilettante Hollywood car guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows about the brakes on the front of his GT3 RS, let me tell you. So he's the real deal. The other one I think would be a ball to do, but he says he's not ready, and that's Jay Leno. And
Really?
he and I have had that conversation. And he said, yeah, Jay, I'm just not ready. He said, not yet. I don't know what he's waiting for, but when he's ready, I'm there for Jay and for Patrick. I've had this discussion with both of them, and I would love to.
And anyone in the racing community that you would like to be able to write a book on, maybe former racers themselves or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say the one that I would love to do more than any, but it's already been done by other guys, and I don't think there's a room at the table for me, and that's my hero above heroes, Mario Andretti. I have gotten to know him, and I count him as my friend, and you won't meet a more thoughtful, gentlemanly, classy, quality, brilliant guy, racer, than Mario Andretti. Class of the field, and he's been nothing but good to me. I have written many articles about him, and I have ridden in cars with him driving. And let me tell you, if any of you think you're a pretty good driver, you need to ride with somebody like that. And then you'll realize you're fair at best. Or crappy, one of the two, but
or just plain out crappy.
Or just plain out crappy. But when you ride with somebody like that, I've ridden with David Donahue and with Tommy Kendall and Mario several times. You realize how good and fast and smooth those guys are, and that really teaches you something. But I would love to do a book with Mario, but he is currently working on his lifetime memoir, and he has partnered with a Doubleday author who's really done some big biographies and is working on that right now. I don't think there's a seat at that table for me, although I know that he and I would work together and it would be great. I'd move to Pennsylvania for a year to sit with him and do that. But I don't think that one will happen. As much as I'd love it, I don't think there's a seat at that table. But Mario would be the other great one. And again, Patrick Dempsey, I think, would be a superb one. His story is not done being written yet.
No, yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, who knows what he's going to do, when he gets to historic levels of racing, like racing, historic type cars and what have you.
I am hoping that Patrick and I get together in 10 or 12 more years and do that. But he's just not ready for that, nor is Jay Leno for that matter. But
yeah,
there's great stories, there's great people, there's great cars. As long as there's those, I'll keep looking for them.
It's kind of funny because I mean that's what I enjoy, and I mean I enjoy hearing the stories, and trying to get the story out there and let other people hear the stories. I mean, as a Southern California guy here, I've seen one of the books that you've written, and it kind of veers off a little bit from your pattern of books, I would say, is the Iski book, Ed. I mean, he's a rough and tumble kind of, in the shop, greasy kind of guy, always has been, and mechanic kind of guy. What can you tell us about your experience in writing that book with him?
That was a great joy, Ed, is all I can tell you. I mean, growing up around cars and drag racing and whatever in Southern California, everybody knew who Iski was.
Right.
Iski Racing Cams. Everybody had that sticker or that T-shirt, myself included. And one time, one of the publishers I was working with, I had just finished a book, and I said, "So, Bob, what's next?" And he said, "You ever heard of a guy named Iski?" I said, "Dude, it's one of our local heroes here in Southern California." He says, "Well, there's been a lot of magazine articles about Ed Iskandarian and Iski Racing Cams, but nobody has ever done his biography." And I said, "That sounds perfect." So I wrote him a letter, and I sent him 2 or 3 of my other books. And I said, "Dear sir, you don't know me, but here's me and here's what I do. And I think you and your story are fascinating. And if you've ever thought about doing a biography, could I joint venture that with you?" And he said, he called me up. He said, "Why don't we get together and talk about it?" So we did. We met at the little burger place right near his office. And we talked about it. He said, "Yeah," he said, "I've often thought about doing this, but I don't even know where to start."
What year is this? Around what year do you think that was?
Oh, this is 5, 6 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ed was only about 95.
I was going to say
5
or 6 years ago, he was already like 94, 95, wasn't he?
Yeah, he just turned 100 last summer. And I promise you, is sharper than your computer. His memory is better than your computer. and I'll tell you what lynched it, not to be too inside baseball, but he said, "Well, is this an exclusive deal?" I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, if we, my family and my kids and I and the company ever wanted to do our own book, could we still do it?" And I thought, this is a trick question, or what do I say? I said, "Ed," I said, "my job is to do such a great job with you that you never want to."
Mm-hmm.
He stuck his hand out and we shook on it, and that was our deal.
Wow.
So I went to his shop in Gardena, California, once a week for a year with a tape recorder, usually on a Wednesday or a Thursday afternoon. And we'd navigate through his disaster zone of an office, and we'd find a little room that wasn't busy, and I'd sit on a chair piled with camshafts under my butt. And he'd sit back in the desk, and I'd turn on the tape recorder, and I'd say, "Well, Ed, when we last left off, it was Bonneville, 1954. And he'd lean back, and it's just like pressing play on a tape recorder. And he'd tell stories about this guy and that guy and Manny and Joey and Slimy and this car and that cam and Don Garlitz, whom he knew from the beginning. And, he knew everybody, and everybody knew Ed. And he supplied Mickey Thompson. Don Garlits with cams, and a lot of other big name Bonneville racers and dragsters. And that was a marvelous year in my life and career. And the result is that book. And it was a great joy to process, to learn the story, and then to write it. It was fun.
Wow, what a great experience to be able to preserve that history. I mean, you were absorbing, a look back in time through his recordings onto your recorder. I mean, once that's gone, it's gone, and now you have it, and now you have it in this book. So, I mean, that's great. That
Yeah, as a storyteller, it was a dream.
yeah,
The story was so rich, and rich in Southern California, hot rodding and speed parts industry birth. The
yeah,
beginning of all this stuff. And everybody you could name, every Edelbrock, Racer Brown, Clay Smith, name any of them. He knew them, worked with them, was friends with them, was competitors. We talked about all those guys. And he pulled out old photos out of boxes and desks and gave them to me and said, here, use these if they're
yeah.
any help. And there's him and Vic Edelbrock Sr.
Yep.
in the dyno room together in 1930, whatever. So, I mean, this is great, magical stuff. And as a storyteller and a car fool, this was magic.
Oh, I could imagine. I mean, you kind of think about it. I mean, there's so many people that are kind of a little oblivious to the rich culture of the Southern California car scene, car culture, how every little pocket, every little city around SoCal is so influenced, has been so influenced by the car industry, the racing industry. I mean, geez, where I kind of saw it, and I was already a grown up, obviously, but I saw it, and it kind of opened my eyes, is at the Peterson. I don't know if they still have it set up this way or not, but at the Peterson, they kind of had, when you walk through the tour on the, not in the basic, the general area, you walk through the tour, they kind of showed like, this is what a car shop may have looked like in the 1930s and in the 40s. It started kind of clicking in your head that, yeah, these guys are coming back from wars and they got these cars and they tearing up these 32 Fords and flatheads and all this stuff that was going on. And it was all happening here in our own backyards, be it Burbank, be it, LA or Carson or wherever. I mean, it was all happening around us. And then growing up in Pomona as a small kid, I mean, when January, February came around, you always had that one week that all you heard in the background was, from the Winter Nationals, blowing, down at the track. And it was just kind of taken for granted. So,
I could hear Pomona and Ontario from my house in Upland.
Yeah. See? And then you had Ontario Motor Speedway, which was just, down the road, down the 10 freeway from us. And
Riverside, Irwindale. I mean, you could name a lot of them.
Yeah, so much stuff. So, I mean, so much culture. And then, I mean, you've gone from writing from all these guys and what have you. And then one person that I'm sure, is near and dear to your heart and to so many others. And I'm assuming that you didn't get a chance to meet him in person, would have been Steve McQueen.
True. I did not meet him. He died in November of 1980.
Yeah.
And I was, in college. And I would have never had any intersection to have met him. I'll tell you briefly how my involvement there came about. When I started writing books, I was thinking, the holy trinity of Hollywood car guys.
Yeah.
And that's McQueen, Newman, and Garner.
Yeah.
And I had just finished my Jaguar E-Type book, and my publisher said, well, you need to think about what's next. And back to the Peterson Museum, the greatest place on earth, happiest place on earth for a lot of those car guys.
Right.
They had at the time had a Steve McQueen exhibit of his cars and motorcycles and ephemera and trophies and helmets and racing suits and blah, blah, blah. And I walked through this exhibit for about an hour, walked out the end, walked into the parking lot and called my publisher. I said, I got it. And I'll show it to you. The real book is a little smaller than this, but you get the idea.
Yeah, very nice. The Steve McQueen. What is it? It's
McQueen's
Machines. Okay, so it's not just cars, it's bikes as well in that.
Yes, it's cars and bikes. My goal with this was to talk about the cars and bikes he owned, raced, and or put into films. And some of those crossed all three of those spectrums. Sometimes he raced them, didn't own them. Sometimes he wrote it or put it into a film, didn't own it. Sometimes he owned it, and it was never in a film, it was never raced. Some cars did all three. Bikes did all three. So it's cars, bikes. I talk about all the movies, cars in the movies, bikes in the movies. And one thing I do not talk about is I don't talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I don't get into what kind of cereal he had for breakfast this morning, or who he reputedly dated,
Right.
or what drugs he reputedly took. I don't believe that car people really care. So if you want that, you ain't going to get it in my books. But if you want to talk about cars, racing, cars and bikes in film, I have 3 books that talk about Steve McQueen as Hollywood car guy. And that was the first one. And it started, the kernel of that idea came from that exhibit at the Peterson. I mean, there was this car and that car and this car and the racing suit and the helmet and the bikes and blah, blah. And I walked out and I said, this is a book right here. And it was. And it's the best-selling book I've ever done.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit, since we're on the Steve McQueen topic here, let's talk a little bit about your involvement and with the Boys Republic and the Friends of Steve McQueen car show that comes up in June. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with that.
Yeah, in doing this book, I got to know Chad McQueen, Steve's only son, and also his first wife, Neil Adams McQueen, who was his first wife, a Broadway singer and dancer and actress. And I got to know them very well. And then when it came time to do the show, they wanted to start doing the show. There was a club that was involved and some other people at the school that all had the idea of, we should do a car show around this. And
the 356 Club, was that?
Yeah. It was the Porsche 356 Club, which yielded our show chairman, Ron Harris. And I forgot exactly, but Chad said, Matty, you got to help me with this show. Sure. And that's when I got to know the school and learned about the school. And it has kind of honestly become my pet charity, because not only because it was such a great thing for Steve McQueen. And you say, why? Well, Steve McQueen went there as a somewhat wayward teen. He wasn't exactly orphaned, but he had a tough climb growing up. And he was very, very difficult to handle. And one day his mother brought him, heard about the school, brought him out, and basically dumped him on the doorstep and said, see if you guys can do something with him.
Do you think Steve might have been at that time, maybe considering it modern times now, like ADD or ADHD or whatever, they label, hyper kids today?
Possibly. I do know one affliction he had that I know affected him. He was dyslexic,
Oh,
and he got picked on a lot because he had trouble reading things. Long lines of type didn't make sense to him. He got picked on a lot. And that might have had something to do with his rambunctious nature. I'm not sure. But he went to the school and graduated, which is amazing. The Boys Republic is for basically high school aged teens, and now girls too. There's Girls Republic, but wayward teens that have kind of washed out of the foster system. And Stephen washed out of every system, and is was very famously quoted, "Had it not been for the school, I'd have been found in a gutter dead years ago."
wow.
So he got there and he shaped up. He went to school, he worked hard, graduated, and went into the service. Um, there's little question that whatever Steve McQueen became is largely because of that school. And then later in his life, he shared his fame, his wealth, and his time with the school. He used to go back unannounced, drive up and go walking into the rec room and start BSing with the kids. Hey, what's your name? What do you want to be?
And that was still right there in Chino Hills, right there
Yep.
in Chino.
Yep.
Right.
And if you go to that marvelous school, and if anybody's never been there, please come to the show and take a tour of the school. You will be blown away by what this property is. And his fingerprints are all over it. There are plaques, there's statues, there's photos. Like the rec room, recreational room, and the pool area needed to be remodeled. Guess who wrote the check?
Yeah.
And he didn't want the photo ops and the PR. He just drove up and he'd walk in and start talking to kids. Or he might occasionally check in with the office first, but needless to say, once he was on the campus, everybody knew he was there. And this guy contributed tirelessly to this school. And what some of these kids who went there without a birth date, birth certificate, or social security number, they're now attorneys. The stories are remarkable. And it's one of those charities where you can see where your dollar goes.
Yeah.
You can meet the kids, you can hear the stories, and you see where your money goes. There's not a big fat administrative draw. It's a pretty thin organization. There's not many people that do a whole lot of stuff. And anybody that donates or goes to the show or anyway puts $1 in the Boys Republic's coffers, you can see with your own eyes the property, the school, the place, and the product of what Boys Republic does. Their slogan is nothing without labor. And I mean, you live there, you work, and you work hard. You learn a trade. It can be animal husbandry, it could be farming, could be culinary arts. They have a marvelous culinary arts school, and all kinds of trades that these kids can do and learn. And they walk out of there ready to go to school and hopefully become something. And many of them with scholarships. It's frighteningly fabulous, the job that this school does with so many kids. Do they have a few that fail out? Of course.
Sure.
But any kid that sort of wants to live and realizes how crappy their old life washing out of the foster system was, gets there and goes to work, and they can see a future. And the inspirational education that they really receive at Boys Republic is terrific. And they're the ones who put on the show. The kids and the staff do the show. There's no big hired guns there. And let's talk a little about the show. I've been going for 15 years now. It is something for everyone.
Yeah.
You like race cars, you like Porsches, you like Ferraris, you like Vets, you like bikes, you like rat rods.
You like Mustangs.
Mustang green, Highland green metallic ones especially. But whatever you like, you'll find it there. And if not, you'll find things to like. Dune buggies. There's always a lot of Steve McQueen's previously owned cars there. The Peterson Museum owns several of them. The school owns a couple. Other people, and to bring them, you want to see McQueen cars, they're there. So it's fun for kids of all ages and their families. It's a great family car show day because you don't have to dress up or be fancy or whatever. I think the admission is $10. I mean, you don't have to go broke going. And it's a wonderful, wonderful event to attend and thus support.
Yeah, and it's a nonprofit, and it all goes to support the kids. Every dollar goes in to support the school and the kids. And I mean, it's a great show. And to be honest, you go, I mean, as car guys, we, on Saturdays and Sundays, we'll go to Cars and Coffee, or here, since I'm here in Huntington Beach, I'll go up the street to Donut Derelicts. And these are all great, and they're enjoyable, and they're fun, and they're great to do. But when that show at the Boys Republic comes up in June, it's kind of like the next level. It's kind of a higher level. I mean, I don't want to say that it's a classier show, but it's like so much more to the show than just going to a Cars and Coffee or anything like that. So if you have an opportunity on June 5th to get out and go drive down to Chino and visit the Boys Republic, please do it. I mean, you will not regret it, and you will return. I mean, you will do it. You will look for it for the following year. I mean, there's, everybody, you'll see everybody shows up. It's either, Harley Haywood or Vic Vic Elford or there you'll have people like that go to the show. They'll sign autographs. In recent years, you'll have people like Magnus Walker shows up, and so I mean, it is quite an event. So yeah,
I would say so. And we get about 400 to 450 entries.
Right.
So, I mean, a good Cars and Coffee is 100 cars. A big, great one is 150, 200. This is double that.
Yeah.
And you'll get your $10 worth 1,000 times over in the stuff you'll see. And it's mild to wild. I mean, there's beaters and rats and restoration projects to show quality stuff, and everything in between. And if you can't find something to like there, I can't help you.
Yeah. And people, you can't think of it as only, oh, I don't have a Mustang, I can't go. Oh, I don't own a 911, I can't go. Oh, I don't have a Triumph, I can't go. I don't have a Bull Taco, I can't go. No, go. Any car you can bring your car. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have an Alpha Spider, I'll take it. There's no profiling that happens there. Right.
Everybody is welcome. And a lot of vintage motorcycles. This year, the show is dedicated to on any Sunday.
Right.
The thing that the show does each year picks a dedicated movie of Steve McQueen. It's been Bullet twice. It's been Le Mans. It's been a lot of the other ones, but this is the first year. It's not going to be exclusively bikes, but it will highlight motorcycles. You will see many Steve McQueen owned and ridden bikes there. I have written about some of them. I've ridden some of them. And if you're really into bikes and on any Sunday, you'll just get geeked out at the motorcycles you will see. And the cars and trucks and bicycles and, single cylinder hit and miss pump engines, and there's boats, and there's all kinds of great stuff going on. And like I said, if you don't get your $10 worth, nothing I can do for you.
So true. So everybody get out in June, look for the show, get out and go see it. It's very much worth your while, and it's going to a great cause. Matt, what's next for Matt? What's anything on your agenda coming up in the next couple of months, or
Well, I hope to be busy, and I hope to do some traveling as hopefully that gets a little easier.
Sure.
I'm already on to attend and judge at the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance in Florida. I'm also a Pebble Beach judge, so you know where I'm at in August. And I'll keep writing stories, keep writing books, keep driving cars. and go to all the great events I can get to. And I want to meet you there at one too.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I know we have a ton of, I mean, we could go on a lot longer with this, and there's a ton of, I mean, we didn't talk about Carol Shelby. There's a ton of stuff we didn't cover, and maybe we have you back on and we can cover some other topics as we go on.
We can do that. I'd love to.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate, spending this, I said I didn't want to go this, an hour, and here we are, almost an hour. So, but hey, this is great stuff.
Yeah, don't forget, everybody, Steve McQueen, carshow.com has all the entry information,
right,
tickets, donations, tours. It's all there. Steve McQueen, carshow.com. I hope I see you all in June, please.
Thank you, Matt. All right, take it easy, and we'll see you soon.
Ciao for now.
Thanks, man.